Kansas State might have lost their 5 starters and key contributors from their historic Sweet 16 run, but the national media doesn't care. They still find them in the top 25 rankings. So here's the question. How good can this new look Wildcat team actually be? Let's talk about it right here on Locked On Kansas State.
You are Locked On Kansas State, your daily podcast on the Kansas State Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Kansas State, your daily Kansas State Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Christian Rao, and thank you so much for making Locked On Kansas State your first listen every single day. Welcome back to my everydayers. Let's dive into a little bit of women's basketball. It's been quite some time, but we have enough to discuss with this offseason, and it's a really good feeling to be the women's basketball team after having a historic Sweet 16 run last season. Well, there's a lot of turnover with that team. Can they find a way to get back into the groove of things? That will be the biggest question. One question I have for you, drop it in the comment description below. Does Kansas State have enough talent to get back to the Sweet 16 or even go further this next season? Drop your predictions in the comments. Hit that subscribe button if you believe the rebuild's already ahead of schedule, or if you just are a big fan of the Cats. We're looking to get to 1,000 subscribers by July 4th. Help us get that happening. So despite losing their entire starting 5 and key contributors like Maupin and Sanchez and Glenn, and really the Glenn twins, Kansas State's women's basketball is still earning national respect. Top 25 rankings from both On3 and The Athletic. A top 10 recruiting class as well. That's still there. And a top 100 Duke transfer is now in purple. We're going to discuss on this show. First, we're going to talk about why Kansas State basketball is still ranked in the top 25 by 2 national outlets, even though losing Ayoka Lee, Serena Sundell, and the entire starting 5. What are they seeing that most people are missing? I want to know about that, and we're going to discuss that on this show today. Then segment 2, we're going to head over and talk about the commitment of former Duke forward Jennesa Cotton. We didn't get to talk about that yet. Top 100 recruit, now officially in Manhattan. What does she bring to the floor, and what's still missing from this roster? I think that's an important thing that we have to talk about. And we're starting to get some buzz from 2027. Look at that. Jeff Mittie is not messing around. We're going to take a close look at some of these 2027 offers that were just handed out by Mittie and the staff. Who are some of these potential rising stars? And what do their early moves tell us about the future of Kansas State hoops? All that plus bold takes, fans, questions. If you have them, leave them in the comments. Maybe a little recruiting buzz as we get to mention here. Let's get into it. So let's start off with the national media still buys Kansas State. And here's why. And I think this is really exciting. 2 top 25, in 2 national polls after that much roster turnover. That's program level respect. And I think you have this respect already for Jeff Mittie. And you can say what you want about Jeff Mittie. I know that there's maybe some polarizing thoughts when it comes to his coaching. I've heard some things on social media, and that could be the minority too. I know when I say social media, I'm talking about only a select few. And sometimes the burners light through and they give a bad view and bad taste of our mouth. But I have seen some things about him questioning certain play calls or whatever the case, whatever. You're always going to get that type of criticism from any type of coach. But Jeff Mittie, you cannot deny that what he's doing with the recruiting trail and bringing in top players to Kansas State is something worth mentioning. And there's a reason why his names were swirled around potentially leaving to go to the SEC this past year. It didn't happen. And why would you want to leave? After going to the Sweet 16 for the first time in forever, and now bringing in a top-rated recruiting class, people are still loving what Kansas State brings to the table and potentially be another seed, another team that could get right back into the position in hosting on NCAA's first weekend. Just missed that last year, and we might be right back in it this year, even with a rebuilding year. You'd expect a reset button after a Sweet 16 run that followed a mass exodus, like Ayoka Lee, like Serena Sundell, and then you lose other players like Z Walker and things like that. Terrence Sides is your only really returning starter, potentially Kennedy Taylor too if the waiver comes in. But instead, Kansas State still finds himself ranked in the preseason top 25 by both On3, who On3 has them at 23rd, and The Athletic, who has them just below at 24th. The reason is simple. It's simple, folks, and I think I've already discussed it, but let's just be clear. It's recruiting, it's culture, And it's the continuity on the benches and the sidelines by Jeff Mittie and his coaching staff. Players want to come to Kansas State to play for this women's basketball team. And why wouldn't you when you're seeing players like Serena Sundell and Samari Poindexter have a fair shot at making the WNBA? Now, they both were unfortunately cut before the season started. I do expect to see Serena Sundell back maybe mid-season. She's too good of a guard to pass up. So I think she still will get her shot, and I'd like to see Poindexter get one as well. And if Ayoka Lee decided to extend her WNBA career, we would have been talking about 3 players potentially in the WNBA this season from Kansas State alone. There's not many other programs in women's college basketball that get to say that. UConn, yes. Maybe Stanford, maybe South Carolina. But those are teams that win the national championship year in and year out. Kansas State gets to say that right now after a Sweet 16 run and the culture that Jeff Mittie is building in this program. It should only get better than what we're getting with this new recruiting class coming in. Got some studs coming in with this new recruiting class. And national media is looking out by it. On3 that came out on May 19th, 23rd. As I mentioned, The Athletic came as 24th. And it's wild to me. I didn't think that we are going to see them in the top 25. I mean, when you lose your full starting lineup and you're still ranked, it's an interesting thing. You know, that top 10 recruiting class per ESPN obviously helps that out, helps them be exciting. You have the faith in Jeff Mittie. You get portal additions like Jennesa Cotton, who we're going to talk about in just a minute. Tess Heel, who I think is going to have a really solid role play. I think she's going to potentially could be, you know, the 6th player of the year easily. I think she's going to have a really solid piece, and we might even see her in the starting lineup. I don't know if they decide to work her with sides or if that's going to be a 1-2 punch, or if they're going to work each other off of the bench and then starting, like, make sure always one's on there. I don't know exactly what we're going to see, but I think we're both going to see some great production from both Terran sides and Tess Seal. I think you can almost guarantee that if they're healthy. So this isn't about the returning stars, although I am excited about what Terran sides is going to do this coming season. It's about that respected the system and the upward trajectory of what Kansas State can be after doing what they did last season. The media doesn't buy flukes. They don't. At least not in the eyes of what we're seeing right now and what we're talking about with Kansas State. They didn't go out and spend a whole bunch of money to bring in players in the portal. They are continuing to have the same type of culture and same type of buy-in. Look at these buzzwords I'm using for the women's basketball team. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Jeff Mittie's doing it right. They buy staying power. That's what the media does. And Kansas State is earning that label year in and year out. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. I mean, we're already talking about 2027 offers, folks, in the middle of May in 2025, which we're going to get to later on in this show. It's easy to call this a rebuild after losing Sundell and Lee. You know, these are 2 players that are going to have their jerseys in the rafters. So it's very easy to call this a rebuild. But I would caution you and say this is probably a reload. We are probably more towards a reload, folks. Kansas State is playing the long game, and that long game is consisting of 4 top players in a recruiting class, some solid transfers coming in the portal, and eyes looking forward to not just next season, but 2027 and beyond. Top 25 rankings with a brand new roster? That says more than a Sweet 16 banner ever could, in my opinion. I love it. I absolutely love exactly where Kansas State's women basketball is right now. And I can't wait to see what is next, because they can't be done. They still have to add a couple more pieces. Kansas State just landed a top 100 forward from Duke just a little while ago. Haven't had a chance to talk about that yet. But with all the talent in the post, are they still building, or are they actually ready to win? Let's talk about that next right here on Locked On Kansas State. But before we do so, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-time winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off or live with player props, performance trends, or those same game parlays. Love those same game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Look, the NBA finals are just around the corner. And if you're watching this right now, we might have the answer. Like, as soon as this is dropped, the game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals is going on with Indiana and New York. If you're watching it later on, this one could be already over. We could have our lineup of it could be potentially Indiana and OKC unless the Knicks hold on and force another game 7. But look, when we get to the finals, SGA, hard to bet against that guy. If I'm going with some kind of thing, if I had this new deal from FanDuel, if I was a new member, I'd be picking points from SGA. What am I talking about with new members? Well, if you're new to FanDuel, it's a perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place that first $5 bet, potentially over on points for SGA. And if that wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. So make every moment count with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to Locked On Kansas State, your daily Kansas State Wildcats podcast. And look, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Trying to get to 1,000 subscribers before July 4th. What an independent. I mean, that's a great way to let fireworks roll, right? Some purple and white fireworks. Let them ride because Locked On Kansas State hit 1,000 subscribers. That's what we would be celebrating, right? No, of course not, actually. What a terrible thing for me to say. I'm a military veteran. I said that, right? That's the humor that you get on this show. Kansas State still ranked in the top 25. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you love it? Let me know in the comment description below. And let's dig into Jennesa Cotton here. Makes it official. But is the front court still a project? I guess that's what I really want to ask on this episode. This segment, at least. Kansas State lands a top 100 forward from Duke. There's a lot of talent in the post. Wonder if that's still enough. Will it be enough? It's obviously going to be some big shoes to fill after leaving from Ayoka Lee, but it's official. Jennesa Cotton, a former 4-star and ESPNW top 100 recruit, is now a Wildcat. 6'2" forward, announced her commitment on Instagram after just one season at Duke. She brings serious upside to Kansas State's front court. I mean, you're talking about a player that's going from Duke, which is known as a top program in college basketball, men's and women's. But here's the question, though. Is the front court now locked in, or are all of these pieces still in the project phase? Because if the Wildcats want to build on last year's Sweet 16 success, you need more than just potential. You need production. And to me, I immediately go to Kennedy Taylor. We have heard that it's not set in stone that she will be returning. It sounds like she needs a waiver. So, when I look at rosters and potential rosters, she's always on there. But if she doesn't come back, then I think the front court is a big issue. And I think even with her back, I think we've proven last year with all the injuries to Ayoka Lee, which saw Kennedy Taylor step up. You need somebody to be in that place that Kennedy Taylor was in last year, so Taylor can try and fill the role of Ayoka Lee, which is a very hard thing to do. And I'm not saying she's going to be able to do it. And that's why it's important to have a loaded front court the best you possibly can, even if it takes 4 or 5 players to do so. Cotton was ranked 80th overall by ESPNW, as I mentioned. She chose Duke over schools like Louisville, Michigan, Kentucky, Colorado, Cal, and Wazoo, Washington State. Her strengths, she's good in post play, she's good in rebounding, rim protection, strong, mobility and transition, and she's only a sophomore. When you talk about this rebuild or retool, whatever you want to talk about, bring in players that are only freshman, sophomore, maybe potentially a junior at most, but still with extra years of eligibility, more than just 1 year of eligibility, you're bringing long-term upside to the program yet again. This is a culture building aspect. And if you think Cotton can be something, maybe not right away in year 1, but potentially your front court player of the future, potentially your 4 or 5 of the future, it shows that you're doing the right thing. Because right now, the current front court includes Cotton, who's 6'2". Then you got Ramira White, a Virginia Tech transfer. She's 6'5". Kennedy Taylor, who averaged 7.1 points per game last year. She's the only returning piece of the front court. And again, still waiting on that waiver. And then you have a 4-star freshman recruit in Brandy Harold, who just flipped from Auburn just a few months ago. Individually, they all bring a lot of promise. But we got to find out if it's proven to be on a consistent Power 5 level yet. Power 4 level, I guess you should say. Or if there's still a missing piece. Hey, look, I mean, Cotton could be a true centerpiece. And the big question is, is there a true centerpiece really right now? If Cotton, White, Harold, they're all developing, but none of them are proven go-to scorers or double-double locks yet. I don't think we have any double-double locks on the team at the moment. At least you're talking points and rebounds, which that has to change. And if you're talking about what's still missing or uncertain, I think the front court is the still thing you have to look at. And I think you got to ask the question, do we have a stretch four? Every forward on the roster that we just discussed really operate best inside the arc. They're really better there. Spacing could be a huge issue for Kansas State this coming season without that shooting forward to complement what could be seen as a post-heavy group. I mean, we're talking 6'2", 6'5" players right here from Cotton and White. It doesn't really scream stretch four to me. The front court chemistry and balance, that'll be another question. There's length and athleticism, of course, but not yet a clear pecking order. And that's going to change. That's just me talking in May here. Of course, there's not a pecking order. You're bringing in 3 new players plus Kennedy Taylor, who potentially might not be there. And there might be another one that comes in. So the biggest thing that I'm wondering is that out of the 3 players, and you hope that the freshman like Harold is the one that takes off, or Cotton or White, because they're all, still have years of eligibility left. Are we looking at 3 project pieces? And what I mean by project pieces, meaning they are years away from being, top players in this league? Or does someone take a leap by November out of these 3 players? You should expect, at least you should know what you're going to get from Kennedy Taylor if she returns. You saw it last year. She might hopefully make a bigger improvement than she did last year, because she's going to be the person. She's going to be the one. But out of the other 3, Cotton and White and Harold, who knows? Who's going to be that one that takes that leap and steps up by November and becomes that top role player for the front court? Cotton might be the most talented of the group, but she still has a lot to prove. Same goes for White as Harold. So the real question is, can you win big right now? Can you win big with this front court in year 1? And that's where the rebuilding thing comes in. That's where the whole year 1 steps back for Jeff Mittie. Because you are now in year 1 without Ayoka Lee. And so far, we'll see if Kennedy Taylor can make that step up, and we'll see how these other 3 do. But so far, and we all knew this, huge shoes to fill. And I don't think you're going to find it out of the portal or the recruiting class right away. But you got to build into that. Well, one of these players do so. Again, Cotton could be the best of the group once the season comes to an end and potentially be the one that nobody saw coming. But everyone will know soon. Kansas State might still have one of the longest front courts in the Big 12, even if it is still made of projects. And if this group clicks, I mean, I know this is kind of getting a little negative here, pessimistic, if you will, but let's finish this on an optimistic side. If this group clicks, it's a top 3 Big 12 front court with size and athleticism and the ability to protect the rim. The missing piece might still be out there, but if it clicks, top 3 Big 12 front court. What do you think about that? Well, also, what do you think about the fact that Kansas State is already looking in and offering players for the 2027 recruiting class, extending offers to 4 nationally recognized prospects? Let's talk about that to finish up this show right here on Locked On Kansas State. Well, if you were worried about this year's roster and couldn't get a grasp on this one because there's a lot of new faces, get ready, because we are already talking about offers for the 2027 class. Jeff Mittie apparently did not listen to John Rothstein, one college basketball analyst personality that says we sleep in May, because it sounds like he's not doing any of that. He is not getting any type of snooze. He's good for him. Circadian rhythm must be strong with Jeff Mittie, but Kansas State's making early moves in the 2027 recruiting class, extending offers to 4 nationally recognized prospects, while the current roster is gearing up for the upcoming season, an unknown upcoming season after being in the Sweet 16 last year. The coaching staff's already layering the groundwork for the future, by targeting top-tier talent in the 2027 class. Kansas State is demonstrating a commitment to sustained excellence, continuing that culture that we keep talking about with Jeff Mittie. The reason why, and this goes from the first segment, the reason why the Athletic and the On3 were not afraid to keep Kansas State in their top 25, it wasn't just out of respect. It was out of the fact that they know that Jeff Mittie is going to be able to turn this recruiting class, these transfer portal kids, into great players, into a team that meshes well and finds a way to win. So now you talk about offers coming to 2027 class. And we're going to dig into them just a little bit. Don't have a lot of information on these. Again, these are players from the 2027 class. We're talking about high school players here. So we're going to dig into them just a little bit to wrap up this episode. Out of the four, we have Okeke, a 6'5" forward/center out of Hightower High School in Texas. And from what I have researched and looked into, it sounds like she is a towering presence in the paint. It sounds like something you could use right now with a front court. Okeke is known for her shot blocking and rebounding abilities. Her size and agility makes her a formidable force on both ends of the court. So 6'5" out of Hightower High School gets an offer from Kansas State 2027 class. Going from 6'5" to 5'6", Samari Holmen out of Duncanville High School in Texas receives an offer, and she's seen as a dynamic point guard. And, the exceptional court vision, could have some leadership qualities right off the bat, which is huge for a freshman. Ability to control the tempo, facilitate plays, garner attention from multiple Big 12 programs as well. So Kansas State won't be the only one in the mix for probably all four of these, but especially Samari Holmen, 5'6". Don't let that fool you. She is great. She is a very good basketball player, and that's someone to really pay attention to in this one. And another one to really pay attention to, DeAndre Minor, 6'1", combo guard out of Grind Prep, Oklahoma. And she's ranked among the top 20 nationally. And she received an offer from Kansas State. Versatile combo guard, excels in scoring, great in defense as well. Athletic, basketball IQ super high. And she's going to be a highly coveted prospect as well. This won't just be a Big 12 chase after, but being in Oklahoma, you can assume she probably will be looked after by other SEC schools as well, like the Sooners and some others in the Southeast Conference. So could be a really great grab if she decides to commit to Kansas State. And then wrap this one all up, Jada Jackson, 6'2", about a small forward. Looks like she'll probably be the 3 or a 4 out of Friendship High School in Texas. 3 of these offers come from Texas high school players. And she's good with her skill and her size. I think she combines those very well, making her a versatile wing player. Received offers already from several Power 4 programs from what I can see, highlighting her status as one of the top players in the women's high school game in West Texas. And that is a crazy hotbed for, really any college athletics, but especially when it comes to football and women's and men's basketball. So Jada Jackson being the 4th one receiving an offer. So you got 4 offers already coming in from the 2027 class. You already have a commitment from the 2024 class in Maddie Vickery. So you're already seeing some really good things from 2027 and beyond. You are building that culture, and you're doing it you're just doing it so early. And I love it. I love what Jeff Mittie and his coaching staff are doing. They're willing to step forward and be prepared for, what is next. And you're already seeing this top recruiting class coming in this year, which we're going to dive into player by player in June. We're going to get into some episodes. That's probably going to be some of our women's basketball content, most of our women's basketball content, unless we get some more news on the portal in the month of June, digging into the freshman class like Jordan Spicer and things like that. But 27, we're already there. We're already talking about that this season. Kansas State's proactive approach in recruiting these these are elite players, 2027 prospects, not only signifies in a bright future for the program, but it potentially continues to keep them as a championship caliber program. You're talking a top 10 recruiting class right now. You've already seen the successful pieces they've added in the portal, whether you think they're project pieces or not. Jeff Mittie keeps cooking. He's keep building players that want to be around in retention. I think this is going to be a really good thing for Kansas State's women's basketball program. Securing commitments like this from any of these standout players would solidify Kansas State's position as a national championship contender for years to come. Gotta love that. Gotta love where they're at right now. Let me know your thoughts in the comment description below. What do you think about these 2027 offers? If you have something about them that I didn't talk about, what you think about them, let the listeners, the viewers, if you're an everydayer and if you got some knowledge, drop it in the comments. start discourse. Let's start a conversation if you're a Kansas State fan in these comments, because we're all here to learn, and we want to make sure that we're following the Cats like no one else every single day. Your team every day. Please like the video. Please subscribe. And this has been Locked On Kansas State.